Good evening and welcome to Rail Natter, everyone. Hello, hello. Oh, some things have happened. We're going to talk about them. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the very recently released Modern Industrial Strategy, the spending review from slightly earlier this month, and we'll refer to the 10-year transport strategy, or rather the 10-year infrastructure strategy, although that we'll be covering in tonight's bonus episode, which you can watch if you are a Patreon subscriber. For £5 and above, you can see the bonus episode every week, which comes in just after the regular Rail Natter. And you get a load of other free stuff, including the audiobook of How the Rails Will Fix the Future, and a few other things here and there. So there's a range of things, but chiefly those of you who subscribe to the Patreon, particularly at the £5 and above tier, allow Rail Natter to happen. Without further ado, everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. What's really good is how successfully I get that working every time. New technology setups, and it's all working marvelously. Right, let's go. Okay, here we go. Everyone, welcome to tonight's Rail Natter. It's the Intercity this. Oh dear me, good grief! I've had a lot of milk. That's clearly my problem. I decided to drink milk today rather than water. As the Intercity 225 fades away, we must start by talking a little bit about. Hello, everyone. It's me. We must start with the reception to the industrial strategy has fallen somewhat flat, I would say. So if we're doing a little bit of news. By the way, there'll be a bumper at the end, so stay tuned. We'll cover the industrial strategy, we'll cover the spending review, and we will have a little bit of bumper extra stuff before we close out, so stay tuned for that. Anyway, the industrial strategy. It has not landed quite so well. There's a huge range of analysis of it and its challenges. I would suggest that The Economist's analysis is probably not hugely tremendous, in honesty. We've got our own view on this, and I want to kind of start by explaining what are the UK's major industrial problems? How can we kind of summarise them? And I've attempted to do this in my experience of, let's say, three major issues. I'm not necessarily going to stick my neck out and say these are the three main issues, but they are three of the major issues, and they certainly overlap with my domain of understanding. Those three issues being the creation and distribution of energy, and it's the costs associated with that. Mobility overall, the ability to move people around, move goods around, and education, particularly university education and the university sector. So if we go through each of those, energy, we're talking about the ability to generate electricity cheaply, sustainably, distribute it where it needs to go, not just in terms of transmission, which is the big high HV stuff with the big towers, but also lower voltages through the distribution networks. And that infrastructure and the relationship of that infrastructure, which is not necessarily in great condition, huge lack of investment across the board, varies by region, but not great. Particularly in the relationship of energy costs to industry, that's a key thing here. Mobility, well, the obvious one is the ability to get around the country, but that's true for a variety of that's important for a variety of reasons. It's important for industry to move its goods around, to move its components around, various things that industry needs. But critically, the thing that industry needs is the ability of skilled people to live and work in a variety of places in relationship to the geographical spread of industry. So that means maximizing the reach of cities, but it also means the relationship between cities and the relationship between cities and their hinterland. All of these things, and also the relationship between pairs of cities outside of London in the case of the UK. Mobility, all these things relate to mobility and how you do that effectively and seamlessly. And then education, and this really is referring to, for the most part, it's referring to the higher education sector and the fact that it is just falling to bits, basically, completely abandoned by the last few governments, including this one, decided, you know what, that might be one of our great exports and our great sources of soft power, but what we're actually going to do is just completely destroy that sector. So education sector, but also it includes the fact that our teachers are increasingly overworked at secondary schools, and the fact that some of those schools also are falling into the ground. So that's a key thing for us to bear in mind. So what was that? That was energy, mobility, and education. We keep those in mind, and we're going to go through the strategy. Let's have a little look at this thing. So. Yeah, let's see the strategy. Let us whiz through the classic, true page turn style. Hello, everyone in the chat. By the way, good to see you all. It's a live episode. Do at me in the chat if you have a thing that you want me to pick up and spot and or talk about. So, the industrial strategy. Let's go through. It's presented by Jonathan Reynolds, who is the Secretary of State for Business and Trade, as it's now called. What used to be BEIS, but is now DBT. I think that's what they're calling it. So what we've got quite a few pages here. We're not going to do this page by page by page. We're going to go through and pick up key elements and skip through large chunks. We don't care about the forward, other than the fact that the people who put their name to it is Starmer, Reeves, and Reynolds. Okay, fine. Also, what's quite funny is that Rachel Reeves' signature is really pixelated, whereas the other two are a bit more SVG. That's kind of funny. Anyway, I digress. I'm going to jump through briefly jump through the executive summary, other than saying, notice how much this is word soup, everyone. So, word soup. Just unending numbers of things that we're going to tackle. Lots and lots of things, to the point where we're getting up to the X as a Roman numeral. More, lots of... Okay, so I would have laid that information out in a different way, to be honest, for an executive summary. But anyway, call me me. So this is good. So we've got the plan for change, and then we've got the strategy for industry, and we've got the pillars of growth, and we've all lost track of that. That's fine. That's table stakes. We're going to go through this. So the strategy of stability, investment, and reform has already been. So restoring stability is something about the strategy. Investing in renewal. We'll get to that in the spending review. Driving reform. So reform is magic regulation cutting will solve all of our problems. So the key thing I want to talk about, one of the first things I want to go into is the there are sectoral deals associated with 8 different sectors. We want to talk about those sectors and kind of understand why I think this strategy is so deeply flawed. So we're going to go through what are these strategies. Well, we'll pick them up in a minute. So it's prioritizing business investment, okay? New relationship between business and government, a 10-year plan in which we chart a strategic course that allows business to make long-term decisions. Okay, fine. Our ambition for this is for this partnership to significantly increase business investment by 2035. So the trouble about business investment is that you can't guarantee it because it's entirely contingent, whereas the advantage of state investment is that it isn't. You know, apart from Treasury's sort of in and outness, you can just do it. You have full control over it, and therefore that's the stability. So okay, so I'm kind of mostly ignoring the silly numbers. They've created this little phrase, the IS8, which is referring to these the 8 industrial strategic sectors. So here are the different sectors. So I noticed that they've not put emphasis on number 2, which is interesting. So here are the 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the 8 sectors that they've picked up. The first one is advanced manufacturing. The second one is defense. The third one is clean energy industries. Okay. The next one is digital and technology. All right. Creative industries. Okay, fine. Financial services, as you'd expect. Life sciences, legitimately fair enough. And professional and business services. Okay. So they're emphasizing these sort of 8 sectors, right? These are the key things that they're emphasizing, and kind of there are a variety of ways in which we can understand these sectors. I think, let's just put it this way. I would not have listed, these are 8 sectors that are, it feels very downstream. It feels like we're looking at an extremely downstream kind of description, a very downstream sort of position that frankly is the deeper rooted foundations are where the challenge lies. And this is kind of why I say we're in a really difficult place, because if government is like, we're going to scatter money down at the tail end of economic activity, it's like, well, firstly, you're second guessing a decade's worth of what that industrial behavior might look like. Meanwhile, the foundations are still a mess. It makes much more sense to invest at the root, the foundational root, and then let the economy do what it needs to do what it wants to do. And, admittedly, you can steer and get involved and regulate accordingly, but it is, yeah. I think basically focusing on kind of this limited number of kind of high growth sectors, as it were, it's significantly underplaying the degree to which the success of these sectors and their growth depends on critical supporting sectors like energy, mobility, education, among other things, healthcare as well. So it's very frustrating. The understanding of curriculum development is a part of the education story, but it's not. Well, we'll go through how much these things are considered shortly. But I think you'll notice the theme here, which is that the government within this has said very little about any strategic transport, and we'll talk about the actual 10-year infrastructure strategy shortly. And this document pretty much is silent on transport. It's silent on sustainable transport as its own growth sector. We build buses. We lead the world in some forms of technology development in relation to buses and other forms of transport. And of course, railways. We are a world leader on the way that you stress the asset, or you sweat the asset, as it were. Again, we could be, in 2025, which ostensibly is Railway 200, a big deal year, festival year for railways. Why aren't railways part of this strategy? It'd be a fantastic way to say, we will make this a core of our economic activity, is to, start being a hub of railway development, design, manufacturing for the world. We could do that, but no, we've decided to instead go for digital and technology, which, we're good at some elements of that, but yeah. Anyway, right. So let's press on. So this thing is focusing on implementation. So okay, fine. This document is just the start. Fine. Yes. Okay. So lots and lots of text, you'll notice. So that's the end notes of this first bit. So ease, speed, and long-term stability for business. Right. Unsupportive and rigid business environment that has not adapted quickly enough with the changing times. Regulatory frameworks have not kept pace with innovation. Digital infrastructure has been upgraded too slowly, especially outside major cities. Too few people are emerging from schools, colleges, universities, or the wider employment system with the skills needed. STEM warning. STEM warning. Remember, I'm extremely anti-STEM. It's a really key thing. We do not want to trap people into just doing STEM, or the idea that STEM is all that universities are good for. It's not. That's part of why many of our problems exist, is because we don't have enough people in skilled roles outside of that very narrow core. So, reducing electricity costs. So, here's our first kind of positive ding. We have a situation where there is an acknowledgement that we're going to reduce energy costs, accelerate grid connections, promote industrial decarbonisation. These are good things. I'm glad that they've been written down. That's positive. So, obviously, there's going to be a massive amount of money being spent to basically create so much energy that you don't need to bother even metering it, right? We're going to go through these pages, and I'm sure we'll spot that. So, the approach will build on existing electricity price relief schemes. Oh. So the government's just going to pay the electricity providers instead of industry, right? Why don't you generate energy, and then the costs would just come down? Okay, right. So I guess the next enabling investment in projects in the North Sea. That's sustainable electricity generation. Fine, renewables, right? While we focus on translating the cheaper wholesale costs of clean power into lower bills, we also recognise the need to act quickly to support sectors. Okay, so fair enough. They're saying we can't reduce bills instantly from more power, so we're going to need to do things in the meantime. That's quite reasonable. So the interventions are they're going to introduce electricity reduction measures, so they're going to subsidise industry essentially by paying for electricity. Likewise to this, it's not a huge amount exciting. Development of the corporate power purchase agreements market. Okay, fine. Reduce grid connection waiting times for strategically important projects. That's fine, but you need to pay for more staff to do that. It's all very well saying you will reduce those waiting times, but you have to invest a lot. This is a new service. We as a rail industry are desperate for this stuff. So if we can also be on that list, please, that would be very, very useful. Reforms to the electricity market. There's not really much said about that. They're saying something about a zonal pricing model, right? Why don't you build nuclear quickly. Or actually at this point, which is we're kind of at the point where we're too late for nuclear to be of any use, massively step up how much solar and wind that we're building. Carbon border adjustment mechanism, okay. Deep cooperation with the EU, okay, fine. We're looking to go back into the internal electricity market again. That's what that's saying. So, yay, that's an actual sensible thing we are doing. Bit by bit, going backwards on all the nonsense from Brexit, fine. Accelerating to net zero, okay, fine. So we're going to plan for a massive amount of renewable energy construction, right? Oh, that's it. Where's the bit where it says we're going to build an enormous amount of... it did the first bit, which is the short-term stuff. Where's the long-term stuff? This is where I go, is it in the infrastructure strategy? Well, okay. Promoting trade and international cooperation. We don't need to dwell on this. Fine. I agree, but the way that you do this is potentially by not massively impacting on our immigration rules to make it impossible for people to come here to, for example, university to study because they can't bring their family. Postdoc or postgraduate students coming over unable to bring their family. Well, then they're not going to come here, are they? It's an abhorrent thing to inflict on someone considering whether they're going to come to the UK, and it means that they won't come to the UK. Likewise, the thresholds for migration to the country, the salary thresholds. The fact there is one, there shouldn't be one. So that, without saying maximize immigration, this doesn't mean a huge amount, frankly. So, right, I don't really care about this go into great detail about this. It's always nice to see the UK and Saudi Arabia deepening economic relations. That's always a reassuring thing to read. So, strengthening our economic and national security. This one is about spending more money on defence, essentially. So we're going to uplift defence spending to 2.6% of GDP, with the ambition to reach 3% by the next following the next general election. We'll get to that. So we're not going to dwell on this because it's painful and frightening. As the world's first civil nuclear nation, the UK also has deep nuclear expertise. As we renew our defence pivotal moment to reassert and revolutionise its role as a leading, responsible and innovative nuclear nation. Our civil and... I don't like them tying civil and defence nuclear capabilities together. Crowding and investment, our commitment to our national endeavour. Why have they put that in capitals? It's a bit weird. Securing the future... Oh, because it's the name... Securing the future of our nuclear deterrent. We don't need one of those. We should get rid of it, but anyway. Okay, so they're wrapping nuclear. I don't like this at all. Wrapping nuclear power into military stuff is bad. So small modular reactors, absolutely good ideas. Yes. To partner with Great British Energy. Oh, Great British Energy mentioned. But okay, the National Wealth Fund exploring potential investment opportunities. It's just all very muddled. It's all very like a roundabout. Just say you're going to invest in small modular reactors. We plan to generate this much electricity from them by this point, but no, they're not saying that. So, cool. That's a big. It's box outs are supposed to be box outs, not multiple pages out. Expanding access to finance. Tremendous. Treasury going to invest more, right? Private investment is crucial for firms starting and scaling. Okay, yeah. We must leverage the state's unique ability to crowd in private investment by pooling risk and providing long-term stability. This is the bit where I go, well, firstly, no, none of that works. PFI, we know it doesn't work. Secondly, maybe, okay, fine. I feel like we could do quite a bit more without needing to... Again, foundations. This is like looking downstream a bit. Foundations, the fundamental foundations, private sector has no interest in getting involved in those. Things like energy, which we've talked a bit about. There doesn't seem to be anything about actually building much more energy. Transport, so far, no mentions. And education. Well, we've not really seen much about the education sector yet. So expanding access to finance, okay, fine. UK public financial institutions, British Business Bank, Innovate UK, National Wealth Fund. Okay, so it's talking about like the scale of what might be investing where. And you know what? I'm not a financial expert on that in that side of things. Like, okay. Driving and supporting innovation. Well, this is the one that I'm like, whatever. Innovation comes from you having a functioning country. So I'm going to jump through that one because it's not hugely relevant or interesting, in honesty. There's not much being proposed. Drive innovation at frontier industries by record public investment, targeted ISA, leveraging private investment and cutting edge. So it's just like, okay. The key thing that drives innovation is pushing things like setting stretch targets, like we shall achieve this level of modal shift, or we shall fully decarbonize not by 2050 but by earlier. Those are the things that drive innovation. Massive mission-led targets by government. Those are the things that drive innovation. I've been reading a lot about Apollo recently. Getting excited about it for various reasons. Frontier industries with civil and military applications. I don't like how much like defense and military has been scattered through this. It's nasty. Capitalizing on the value of data. This is another situation. Okay, so this is the bit where they're just going to build a bunch of data centers. See also previous Trash Future episodes. Yeah, so that's what are they going to do? Data content marketplaces or exchanges in the UK? Well, if it's anything like the rail data marketplace, it'll be awful. Just make data open. Invest 36 million to support new smart data schemes. Okay, introduce the National Data Library. This will bolster the UK's rapidly growing AI sector. Comedy pause for effect for the audio-only listeners. That's not good. Don't do that. Don't just give the private companies all the data for them to just create their bad AI models on. Enhance skills and accelerate access to talent. Right, this is the bit where they're going to say they're going to fix and underpin the university sector by increasing its funding. Let's see. Okay. We have world-class universities. Universities mentioned. Terrific. Okay. No. Too many young people who are not progress. Okay, right. So ensure the skills system and employment support are aligned to strategic economic priorities. That looks suspiciously like more STEM and less everything else, which I do not like. So let's see. Over the last 5 years, there's been a 20% increase in university applications in engineering technology, but the number of engineering graduates each year has remained steady. Yeah, I wonder why that is. Because there's no bloody work to do. What do you think is going to happen if there's no work to do? For the last 5 years, we've cut loads of major projects. So where are those engineers going? This is what I mean, like the lack of foundational investment in the fundamental workings of the country is what's lacking from this. So we'll ensure there are sufficient courses to support 16 to 19-year-olds. And again, it's talking about high-value course premia. We will deliver funding uplifts to priority courses that support key IS sectors. This is extremely bad. This is not how you do this. You fund the universities and you let universities and people and researchers and academics decide what is fascinating and interesting. You let industry itself then, this is where the private sector funding comes in. You let industry fund things it thinks are interesting. You let industry underpin PhDs, underpin courses. But you fund every course equally because every course has, if it's there and someone wants to run the course and it's being attended, it deserves to exist. Yeah, really do not like that at all. What's this one? Priority training, growth and skills, levy flexibility. Right, fine. Higher education, strategic priorities grant will be effectively targeted towards priority provision. Again, don't like that at all, which supports future skills needs. Prepare to create a bunch of job code booking robots that, by the way, also won't be in unionized jobs. Lifelong learning. Okay, fine, very important. Not a huge amount said about it. Yeah, you can see that this is doesn't seem to have talked much about actually. Oh, we've separately launched a new industry partnership with major tech players, Nvidia, Google, and Microsoft, to train 7.5 million UK workers in essential AI skills. There are no AI skills. What? What are you talking about? Do you mean writing AI prompts for large language models? Baffling. Oh dear. Anyway, right. Let's not dwell on this. This is depressing. Let's roar through. I'm sorry, but none of this is good. Focusing on getting the world's brightest minds to relocate to the UK. But we just said we aren't going to do that. Oh, look, another theme that's very angry here, setting up a new global talent task force reporting to the Prime Minister's office and the Treasury. Oh, look, another thing that's going to be wired directly into the number 10 and number 11. Spectacular. Yeah, really, really good stuff. UK universities will play a critical role in delivering our industrial strategy. Absolutely they will, yes. What are you doing to support this university? You just said a load of good stuff. What are you doing about it? Nothing. That was just an infographic showing how great they are without any evidence about anything about what they're actually going to do. Reducing regulatory burdens. So this is we're going to scrap red tape, which we know that means reducing workers' rights, reducing standards of safety, and also things that stop us from destroying the environment. So all good, healthy stuff. improve regulator performance through stronger transparency and accountability. Sounds nice. What does it actually mean? More KPIs and more regulators of regulators. Tremendous. So we're going to introduce super regulators that regulate the regulators. But then who's going to regulate the super regulators to regulate the regulators? That's my question. The role of standards in self-driving vehicles. Oh. For sake. Okay, right. So we know this is junk. Based on the website metrics provided by the British Standards Institution, as we know, private, go back and listen to the Grenfell episodes, bad news. These standards have gained interest globally, being downloaded all over the place. So in advance of the Automated Vehicles Act, oh Lord. So, yeah. And here's even more of a fun one. Removing planning barriers and accelerating infrastructure. Now, what I hope are going to say is, we're going to invest in local authorities so that they can staff their planning offices. Let's just pay close attention to this. Digital infrastructure is crucial for almost every aspect of doing business and will underpin the AI revolution. Oh, brother. Too few publicly funded projects have been committed to and too few have been completed. I mean, that's correct. So I presume they're going to commit to more and fund more. No. No, okay. Let's have a look. Ensure that the planning framework supports growth. So that's just tinkering, okay. Provide greater certainty, confidence, and stability through our 10-year infrastructure strategy. Okay, the 10-year infrastructure strategy. We'll have a look at that. I'm sure that's going to be tremendous. That's a bonus episode thing, which we'll do tonight. We'll have a good look at that. I'm sure by the fact that I've put it in a bonus episode that it's something that's fundamental to RailNata, that it'll have so much important information in it that we will have so much to go through, and it will be defining. No, I've bumped it in a bonus because it says nothing. Spoiler alert. Right, so the interventions. So let's see. Increasing certainty by... anything in here? By doing what? No. Okay. Here we are. Wait a minute. Oh, look. Transport has been mentioned. Improve connectivity by investing in new transport infrastructure across England and Wales during this spend review period. And of course, within that, we know, and we will know shortly, very little is going to be proposed. So we're talking about, like, a massive investment in key strategic infrastructure and new ideas, new transport ideas, and critically devolution of that major funding to the cities, so the cities can run autonomously, facilitate their own growth, their own strategies on that front, right? Well, we'll pick through those numbers shortly, but yeah. Right, delivering a tax system that supports growth. So, right. We have an internationally competitive headline tax rate. All right, so saying we're low tax, that's great. Capital allowances, okay. R&D tax credits, yes, we do have those, okay. Patent box regime, okay. Benefit directly from their intellectual property. These are all the ways in which people don't have to pay tax, essentially. Suite of generous tax relief for the creative sector, which I think is probably a good thing, to be honest. That's good. Business can also generally deduct the cost of training their staff when calculating their corporate tax liability. So okay, tax things, fine. Sort of tax stuff. The roadmap makes commitments across corporate taxes. Fine. Capping headline corporation tax rate at 25%. Well, okay. Wider support for sectors. So this is now the more broad point. Freight and logistics. Here's a freight. So you're going to invest in transport, right? You're going to electrify bits of the network that allow freight to be moved by electric trains completely, right? It's only probably a few $100 million and you can do the whole lot. Let's have a look. Oh, no. No, they don't mention that at all. And we're at the end of that section. So then we get to supporting the UK city regions and clusters. Okay, right. So the city regions and clusters, we know what those are. And sector-specific targeted investments, connection between... Okay, so again, we've got connectivity being mentioned, but only very loosely here. So bringing forward more investable sites, strategic sites accelerator, industrial strategy zones, AI growth zones. Oh my God, can you imagine dedicating that? Like, AI is just a tech thing like Bitcoin and crypto. It's not its own thing. And yet we're writing its own thing. It's just going to be so painful to look back on in 3 or 4 years. It's just grim. Plymouth Defence Cluster. Build national, regional, and local capability to attract and land investment. Well, okay, so that's the money's thing by the look of it. Okay, yep. There's nothing about actual transport connectivity. Renewing our partnerships in Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. Okay, fine. Yeah. there's a little bit about Great British Energy here, which we still don't really know much about. Striking opportunities in Scotland, in Wales, in Northern Ireland, hooray! Supporting mayors and local authorities, okay, fine. Investing in high streets. Well, the way you invest in high streets is, by the way, by excluding cars from them and providing good public transport. That's the way to save high streets, but they haven't mentioned that. So they're talking about unleashing the potential for cities and regions. Let's just skip through this because it's not hugely useful. So, look, they've gone through, they've talked about housing a little bit, which is important. They've talked about East-West Rail and the relevance of that, but you can see that they're talking about trivial things. A new East Coast Main Line station at Tempsford. One station. Incredible. Ensuring that water companies build new reservoirs. Yeah, okay. Pressures on water availability. Yeah, well, ensuring that water companies, why don't you just build them yourself? Again, you see what I mean? It's just like, you aren't, how are you going to ensure water companies are going to do it? How are you going to do it? You're going to force them to do it. Just do it yourself. So you can see that there is delivering HS2 and maximizing its growth benefits, but you aren't maximizing its growth. You maximize its growth benefits by delivering it in full. You're not doing that. So, improving rail connectivity between city regions and clusters in Wales and England. So, Welsh growth, good, fine. South Wales, Bristol, fine. And that's it. No mentioning of, like, the north there. At all. They said city regions and clusters in Wales and England, but no mention of that. End notes, supporting our frontier industries. And then this is the bit where, we've got our 8 sectors here. Again, I'm just going to reinforce. We've had no commitment to the upfront foundational stuff of any meaningful scale, and lots of exciting chat about what happens down the line. But again, not really even anything meaningful particularly. There's stuff in here which I'm sure is helpful, but it just greatly falls short on. So there's all these. I'm going to whiz through these. So I'm going to go through fairly like this. So you can see these things, and none of it is, I think, particularly pertinent or relevant for us to go through. And I'm conscious of time. I just, we've got these here, fine. And it's creating an enduring partnership with business is how they close it out. There's Rachel Reeves with a bunch of her business pals here. That, let's see. So you can see there's just a few. Basically, this is writing out a few big investment commitments. But this is not, what is it, 63 billion quid? Okay, big deal. Like, fine. This would happen if you were doing the foundational stuff as well. So I don't know. They're just writing down stuff that businesses want to do, and it's like, well, yeah, but we wouldn't have to beg and borrow if we then would. I think you get my drive. I don't want to go through any. Like, okay, fine. Industrial strategy bill. Okay, so there's going to be put a bill on this for some primary legislation. Okay, great. And there you have it. There is the wonderful industrial strategy, which I'm sure you'll agree is tremendous and not a complete fluff. So. From that document, we must then go, right, so in terms of, my kind of guts thoughts on this, where is the mass building program for generating cheap energy? It's not being talked about at all. The reform is being talked about in very woolly, well, in the future we might do this terms. Where is the total mobility vision? There is no vision of overall mobility. Maybe it's in the infrastructure strategy. Spoiler alert, it isn't. And then university sector, just nothing, no acknowledgement of the fact that it's a sector on its knees. Like, none at all. It just says, oh, no, we're going to take more money from it by focusing even more on STEM. So, not great. Another thing that's greatly worrying, where's the discussion about workers in all this? Where's the discussion about, like, the people who are going to be facilitating this industrial revolution or whatever they want to call it? What about the people and the protections for those people and understanding how workers are going to be involved? No mention of, barely any mention of unions. I'm not going to do a word search now, but unions are hardly mentioned in there. So what about people who are facilitating this wonderful magical explosion? I'm extremely concerned about this. Let's put it this way. I just don't think it really is going to achieve anything that the government has talked about. So now the spending review from a little bit before the industrial strategy. And I'm going to focus on transport. There'll be a Trash Future episode coming up that talks about the spending review in the big picture. But I want to talk about the transport element of this. Thinking about kind of the middle lump, the mobility lump on the previous section. I want to talk about the spending review. And so here it is, spending review 2025. I'm not going to do a page flick of it because you don't need to. I've pulled out the numbers. And I'm going to go through the headlines. I'm keen to see what you what you think. So let's see. So yeah, as ever, if you've got things you want to throw my direction, chuck at my name and I'll spot. If it's a question that's not related to the topic at hand, I'm going to be picking those up in bonus episodes. So all transport funding in the Spending Review 2025, that document that we were looking at a second ago, not a second ago, sorry, the document, this thing here, all transport funding, £83 billion of transport funding. Now, does that sound like a lot? That's over a, in some cases, 8-year period. It varies a little bit between different commitments. So some of the commitments are for 3-4 years. Some of the commitments are until the next general election. Some of them go beyond that. £83 billion total transport funding, right? Rail funding, £32 billion. Okay, so that's about, what was that? About 40% of overall funding. Okay. What about new rail funding? New projects? £0.4 billion. So money that I've not seen committed to anywhere else before, £445 billion, and possibly only actually £300 million of that is really a commitment. And we'll get to where that is shortly. So, wait a minute, we've gone from £83 billion to only £445 million of actual new money that wasn't already on the table with the previous government. I wouldn't call that visionary. I'm not of a mind where we go, oh, thank goodness they've not cancelled more. Well, firstly, that means that stuff that was cancelled is still cancelled. That's on government. You know, look back to 1965 to see what I'm referring to. That's on this government. But also the fundamental lack of vision and foresight. If you talk about the industrial strategy, if you want to have a vision for the future of the UK, you need to have a vision for its transport system. And you don't have a vision for its transport system if you're still sat on commitments from 20 years ago. 2009 was when HS2 was committed to. Let's go through some of this. So let's break this down in a bit more detail. So I'm going to start from the biggest number and work my way down. The biggest single digit item on there, or single line item on there, is, and I'm putting High Speed 2 in railways, in scare quotes here, because 25.3 billion committed to delivering Old Oak Common to Curzon Street, and nothing more. So we're going to talk, I'm sure there's plenty to talk about with HS2 in the future. I don't even want to go through the letter necessarily. I might do a separate little mini-sode on it, but I just, yeah. 25.3 billion, that's High Speed 2-ish, or rather the stub of it that remains. Not new money, though, crucially. That's HS2. How long has that been around? You know, since 2009. So let's have a look then at the next big number, which is capital spend on roads, motorways and highways and, you know, trunk roads and local roads. Capital spend, 24 billion. So that's 24 billion. So that's ever so slightly less than HS2 money going towards capital spend on roads. Again, this is not really new money. This is RIS3 and a few other, you know, non-strategic commitments make up this number. This is another one that hit the headlines as a big number, 15+ billion via the Transport for City Regions Fund. 15.6 billion. Well, 15.3 billion was committed under the previous form of this, which was like a CRSTR2, basically another big silly named fund, but like the City Region Transport Strategic doodah, which was 15.3 billion, but quite a few years ago, back in 2022 or maybe 23. Inflation means that this is now a reduction in that number. So 15.6 billion is a reduction in the number. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say this is just the money that's been transferred from one fund into another for things like trams, buses, and city roads, depending on what cities want to spend them on. Absolutely, it should be for cities to decide what they're going to spend that money on. Will it be properly? It's another one to look at. But again, it's not new money. This is not new money. What about this Transpennine route upgrade? Well, all of you know that this is happening. It's good that it's happening. It's a very expensive project. I'm glad it is happening, but it's also like, 2 decades. Well, this was being talked about, called Transpennine route upgrade longer than I've been alive, or just about the same time as I've been alive. 3.5 billion being committed to TRU. Further, great, good. I'm glad it's continuing. It's really important that there's not nearly enough ballast in that track, by the way. Shouldn't be running a train on it. That is a sizable chunk of money, and continued investment in the project is really important. It will make a massive difference to a lot of people. But again, it's delivering a West Coast route modernization style project that all of the capacity that is being delivered on it will be used up instantly because the demand is absolutely there. Not new though. TransPennine route upgrade, that's been going on for a while. Quite a while. Not a new project. You know, it's still going on, so it's not a new project. So what are they? We've got some smaller line items here. So 3 billion for bus service improvements, 2.6 billion for transport decarbonisation, and then we get some of the rail ones here. So 2.5 billion for East West Rail, not a new project. 2.3 billion for local non-urban transport. So that's for that's for transport that is outside of the city region funding allocation. But again, none of that's new. All of that is money. Well, you know, the bus service improvements is kind of continuing to fund the £3 cap, not bringing the £2 cap. The £2 cap was better, by the way. For less than £1 billion a year, you can just do that. Just do it, you know. So not really anything new for rail in there. And then the next one, if you start getting to really small numbers, so we're spending the same on sustainable aviation fuel, funnily enough, exactly the same to the million, £616 million on sustainable aviation fuel, which is, you know, bullshit. But also exactly £616 million on active travel funding. So take the sustainable aviation fuel money and just give it all into the active travel funding pot. And we've got some more rail things in here at the bottom here. So again, this is a bit painful. Actually, I've written 0.3, but you could call it 0. You know, whether it's 0.3 or 0.4. This is the rail investment in Wales. The same amount, essentially, as the rail investment in Leeds Station. So one station in England is the same as all of the money that Wales is getting. I'm not saying it's bad that Leeds is getting that. I'm saying that it's bad that Wales is not getting multiple £billion, not least in Barnet consequentials from East West Rail and from HS2. So, yeah, both... not the Barnet consequences are good. See previous episodes on that one. Not really, not great. And then I humorously included the rounded figure here, 0.05 billion for the South Wales Metro. So Wales, I would not say getting a good deal in this. If you divide by the population, you're talking about an extremely small amount of money. Yeah, so... And the Welsh investment is new. The Leeds Station and South Wales Metro investments, not new. So the generic 300 or 445 million, depending on who you're talking to, is new money. That is new commitment. That's the only new rail commitment. I am happy to be corrected on this. Out there, if you are ready to correct, please do correct me on that one. If there is if I missed something, then yes. But not great. There's another thing I want to point out here, which is rail funding to 2032-ish is 32 billion. 32 billion is exactly the same number that is being pinned to the annual increase in defence spending. This stuff is all a choice, and that's before we talk about sort of more modern theories of economics. Just purely on choices about what we spend on alone, we're choosing to spend 32 billion alone on defence. Over the period of the spending review, defence is getting, like, a lot more than transport. Like, a lot more than transport. Is defence a useful way to spend that money? No, it is not. The thing about defence is that it's useless. The thing about transport is that it's useful for everyone. That's why it turns into a useful economic output. Of course, there are some minimal economic outputs from, like, doing defence and skills investment and spending, but you don't get anything materially useful out of it. You know, it's just a thing that you have to look after to no material benefit of anyone at all. Whereas transport, you create a thing that actively gains, and benefits the community that it links, the cities that it links, the industries that it links. So, an interesting choice, I would say, at this point in our history to be doing this. Let's see how long this lasts, shall we? Yeah. So Gareth, there's a couple of questions actually. Let's go. Let's briefly go. Oh, you know what? No, I'm gonna pick up some thoughts in a second. So Midlands Rail Hub, £0 for Midlands Rail Hub. This is a project that should have been funded and wasn't. £0 committed. Mentioned, £0 committed. Another project, the high-speed rail project that we covered a couple of episodes ago. Government could have committed to invest in this. It could have committed a headline figure to this. They have not. They have committed £0 to the North of England High Speed Rail project, and that's just the bit that's reasonably well worked up. Now, you might say, well, there's more to be had in here. There's more that might go into the the UK infrastructure strategy is referred to a lot, and that's going to contain all the projects that aren't highlighted in the strategic the comprehensive spending review. And I go, all this vision, the huge vision that we have. Well, where is it? There isn't one. There is no vision. And then you might say, well, no, it's fine. It's going to be in this infrastructure strategy. Well, let's pick that up in the bonus episode, shall we? In the meantime, though, let's pick up a few of the questions, because I haven't done enough of this. It is a live one, and I want to see what you're saying. So let's have a look. Tim Ballum, they've screwed the pooch big time. You spend on rail and the customers will come. Absolutely. Opinions on the commentary VLR, it's in a previous episode, you can pick it up. TRU still missing around 6 billion of confirmed funding. Yeah, that's my understanding. There's a load of funding. They could just say, yes, of course that's going to be there, but they haven't. It's so the money being pressed, I suppose, in the point of TRU is that, like, it's money, that envelope money that has been nominally committed, and now it's been more officially committed. But the project exists. It's not, I don't think they can claim a grand thing about it. So, yeah, TRU funding is kind of piece by piece, and I don't see that being a particularly useful way of doing things. Gareth is saying Wales is getting 445 million over 10 years, 300 million of which is for the first 2 to 3 years. So not a huge amount of money. Not a huge amount of money. If the deterrent factor was real, would it be worth nationalising the defence sector? Well, it's another story. Yeah, so there we go. So really, yeah, interesting situation, I would say. Very briefly, remember, Patreon folks, you will get that bonus episode. You will get the bonus episode of this, the 10-year strategy. You can subscribe right now. You can subscribe. You can do it, and you will get tonight's bonus on the 10-year infrastructure strategy for £5 and above. You get all the £2 and above. Sorry, the £2 stuff, which is if you pay £2, there's like a £2 tier. You get Discord channel access. You get discount on merchandise. You appear in the end credits. You get a warm, fuzzy feeling. But if you pay for the £5 and above tier, you get that plus Q&A sessions, bonus episodes every week. Q&A sessions, you get first dibs on event tickets. You get a free How the Rails Will Fix the Future audiobook, behind the scenes previews, all of that sort of fun, good stuff you will get access to. You can find the link in the description. Now, I want to talk about transport recovery from COVID. We have not talked about this for a very long time, and I'm pleased to be covering it. So it has been a long while. These are the numbers for those new to RailNatter. Hello, lovely to have you here. We are talking about the use of public transport versus, or rather, particularly buses, rail services, so buses outside of London, national rail services, and cars and taxis in red at the top. This is in relation to the pre-COVID level. So this is understanding is rail ridership at or above 100%? Well, it has been now since, reliably above since March. So we've had a couple of months of it. This is a rolling 28-day average to smooth out a lot of the sort of short wavelength kinks. So what's interesting, though, is that basically since the start of the year, and before, in fact, and even before that, rail has been dancing around, but reliably since the start of 2025, rail demand as a percentage of pre-COVID levels has been higher than road demand. So rail is up here in white, road is here in red. Bus service demand still a bit lower. I find this fascinating. I would love to understand this more deeply. The bus figures are non-TfL figures. So you can see that this is fascinating. I suppose the key thing I want to talk about is dig into these numbers a bit more deeply and understand where we're at. So what is this? This is sort of September, October, September, October, November, sort of October, November 2024. We saw this flip, and rail demand has been higher than road demand in percentage terms, and then since sort of reliably since 6 months ago, rail has been above 100% of pre-COVID levels. Patterns have changed, but overall ridership way above. Revenue is still a bit down because the people are being a bit more clever with the way they buy their tickets, and season ticket sales are down. But you can see that there is this, so if you hear people saying that not that many people are traveling by rail, they're fibbing. They are lying to you. They have a bone to sell you. So or they have a bridge to sell you and a bone to pick with you. No, we have a bone to pick with them. Anyway, an interesting little thing to pick up, I think. So, I just want to say a few outro plugs before we head off, and I see you for the bonus. Well, the first of those is come along Friday 4th of July to the St. James the Alphabetti Theatre on St. James Boulevard in Newcastle. Friday the 4th of July this year, as you'd imagine, because I'm plugging it. Lord Burn Specials. It's going to be me headlining a chat about trains. We're talking trains, but there are also going to be other writers, poets. There's going to be music from Lucy Valentine and others. It's going to be fab. Get your tickets in early. It's going to be really nice. It's going to be a lovely chat about all things train, and it's going to be culture and folk vibe, and it's just going to be good fun. I'm very excited for it, and there's a Class 37 on the poster, so that's going to be a delight. Come along to that. Without further ado, next week, of course, next week we will be covering the Network North Wales report. We'll be scoring it, we'll be looking through, see what the vision is, see what we think of it. Something a bit more good newsy, because it is a vision that's good, and because it's evolved, it's a little bit more aspirational and useful than the rubbish that we see chucked out of Westminster. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be something nice to talk about for once. So it's something pleasant for us to cover. We talked about Wales, HS2 and Barnet Consequences in a previous episode. For anyone who's curious, you can go back and pick that one up. The bus service figures are partly Brexit. The bus drivers went home and couldn't return. This led to services being cut. Interesting. I wonder to what extent that is just one of lots of factors. Oh, yes, North Wales. We're going to be talking about North Wales again, you might say. We've been dancing around North Wales quite a bit, haven't we, Gareth? I'm not talking to myself. There's a Gareth in the chat for those just listening. Anyway, everyone. That's been a real matter. We've covered a couple of documents. For the third document, come join us in the bonus episode. A delight. I'll see you there. But until then, cheerio, cheerio.